Hello, thank you for being here with us on the Soprasteria webinar. We are in a heat wave, but we will talk today about the next wave, the one of AI. We are lucky to have with us today a panel of experts, including Ayman Awada, CEO of Financial Services here at Soprasteria, Marie Pelvoisin, VC Portfolio Manager in Soprasteria Ventures, Paul Heijmans, CTO of Netherlands and Director of Industry, Alexandra Echeverry, User Experience Designer at Soprasteria, and Enzo Militi, Innovation and Offer Projects Manager at Soprasteria as well. We will have 1 hour together in 4 parts. First, we will have an introduction by Ayman Awada. Second, we will have the insights from our Gen AI report with Marie. Third, we will have the Agentic for IT Revolution part with Paul. And last, the AI augmented experiences for financial services with Alexandra and Enzo. I'm Ilaria Randazzo, and I will be moderating today. First, I will leave the floor to Ayman for an introduction.
Thank you a lot, Ilaria, and I'm really delighted to have all of you today share this webinar with us on AI in financial services. I'm Ayman Awada. As Ilaria said, I lead Soprasteria's financial services business globally. So maybe just to set the scene about what we are going to hear about, there's a great deal of buzz and noise around AI, and I don't need to be more explicit on that. We hear about AI all the time in different forms, but it can sometimes be difficult to really assess where the market truly stands, what the clients are really doing, or where the maturity of the market is compared with the promise of AI, which is of course a very important revolution in technology. One mention about Soprasteria, we have been really helping our clients adopt new technologies to change their business for decades. And AI is not something new. Of course, everything has been accelerated with Gen AI, agentic AI now, and we can actually, with the length and the breadth of our experience in that domain, really see how the clients are evolving in that sense, with the great acceleration which has come since Gen AI in 2023. So we have been assessing the market development, and this is actually the third year, I think, in a row where we published a Gen AI report about market maturity to see the evolution actually of market maturity, and we'll be hearing a lot about that. We'll also, be talking about some upcoming trends that we believe will drive the next wave of disruption in AI. And it's not kind of like years ahead of us. We are there, and you have seen the cycles shortening to 3 to 6 months, as an example, in many of the areas we'll be talking about. So just a word about market maturity. We see that adoption in the FS sector in just 2 years have really evolved very quickly from early experimentation to broader implementation. There's no clients today who is not really starting to deploy broadly the AI in different forms, of course. However, and this is, I think, very important, we're still not seeing deployments at true industrial scale across all the business. Some areas are faster than others, and you'll be hearing about how AI is disrupting the IT side. And of course, IT is progressing much faster than other areas with significant disruption already visible in software development lifecycle. And Paul will be talking about that. We'll come back to that, of course. It's part of the section we'll be hearing about. Before I hand over to our speakers, I would like to highlight 4 challenges that are preventing the client from moving faster. Because between what you're hearing from vendors and actors in this domain, you could think that now it's everywhere. However, to move faster, there are actually 4 challenges that need to be tackled. To unlock the full value of AI, the first one is really organizations need to be much more transversal and need to be collaborating much more transversally. This is often limited by siloed structure, by reskilling challenges and legacy applications, all areas that need to be addressed. The second challenge is a ROI, or return on investment challenge. It remains a key one. Access to computer power and tokens has become a priority, and recurring costs related to computer power and token is becoming the hot topic right now in the industry, and raise important questions about the real return on investment. And all my clients are talking right now about how do we get the ROI with the cost we will have to invest in tokens. The third one is the cyber risk acceleration. AI is significantly increasing the speed, scale, and sophistication of cyber threats. Recent developments around Anthropic Mythos illustrate how quickly the risk landscape is evolving, with attack capabilities becoming much cheaper, more automated, while financial institutions must really strengthen detection, response, and resilience. Another very, very hot topic at C-level with all our clients. And finally, the fourth challenge, there's growing dependency on technology vendors, which is bringing digital sovereignty considerations to the forefront. When you want to bet on a specific technology and you actually leave all your processes, your data, etc., to a certain vendor, you become dependent. So for Europe, where Soprasteria operates, sovereignty and digital sovereignty is a very important topic. We've been also helping our clients really address that issue, which is risk related to sovereignty. You've seen as well, the Mythos decision from the White House to stop actually deploying worldwide, which has brought a lot of emotion, I would say, in the industry. But also, European Union is taking this very seriously with a sovereignty package that has been released a couple of weeks ago that addresses also that, and another one which is board-level discussions related to AI. At the same time, there's a broad agreement that potential of AI is massive. The key question is how to move fast, capture value, while really adopting a responsible and sustainable approach. Our speakers will be helping explore that questions today, and I'll leave the floor to our next speaker. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Ayman, for this great introduction. And we will now start with Marie Pelvoisin about the Gen AI reports.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me and thank you Ilaria. I am Marie Pelvoisin and I'm working at Soprasteria Ventures as a portfolio manager, meaning I am monitoring the fintech we invested in with Soprasteria Group to create synergies. Soprasteria Ventures is the strategic partnership and investment arm of Soprasteria. We have today 16 participations across Europe and one in the United States. We have direct investments in fintechs such as Algon and Vero Technologies. And we have also investments in specialized funds such as Truffle Capital, which is a specialized fund in fintech, and EXA, which is an accelerator with a very well-known fintech such as Swan and Spendesk. We also invested in Quantonation, which is a quantum specialized funds, and these quantum companies can apply to financial fairnesses. This is the case for Quandela, but more of them, of course. We talked about fintechs, but today we have 10,000 fintechs in Europe. It's huge. It's also something very interesting to see with the growing of investment in agentic AI. Today it is 2 billion that have been invested in agentic AI, and it is more than 500 fintech that are AI native in Europe. So there is two things interesting to notice about this. It is the fact that more and more fintechs are starting to be AI native, and the fact that the UK are still supporting more than 50% of the investment made in the fintechs. Today, financial institutions and insurance are supported in critical segments by AI, such as the loan life cycle, the wealth management, the compliance, the customer experience, and more. So this is because of this use case, because of the growing adoption of AI, that Soprasteria has been presenting 2 Gen AI reports. These reports are available on demand and are an informal retrospective on AI adoptions across financial services and insurances. What is interesting is that this report have a multidimensional assessments of AI adoptions. First, we are assessing the maturity, but we're also measuring the geographical distributions and the purpose and segmentation of this use case. The key trends that we can already highlight between the first and the second edition is that 40% of the use case in the second editions were new, meaning that there is more and more Gen AI use case in financial services. Second is that the maturity of the Gen AI adoption increased and reached experimental stage in all dimensions. So financial institutions are definitely using Gen AI better. To move on the main conclusion of the Gen AI reports, second Gen AI reports, it confirms the maturity shift in AI adoptions across financial institutions and insurances. First, we can see that the commercial stage has been reached by more use cases, especially the existing use cases that were in the previous reports, and that the pilot trap is still something that we should look for. Second is that the financial institutions are using Gen AI better and in all dimensions of the maturity adoptions, technology and data, governance and organizations, but also business value and culture and expertise. One last conclusion is that the internal use is the main objective to reach operational efficiency, and that is supported by document intelligence and text generations AI capabilities mainly. Then I will talk a bit more about the use cases we saw in the second reports, and especially the verticalized one. So often, these verticalized use cases are used for the compliance field or to navigate complex regulated informations. So this is the case for tax processing, advising, but also the case to look for complex regulated information with a conversational bot, or for fraud detections in insurance claim, for examples. What it is also interesting to notice is that there are already AI native fintech targeting these use cases in Europe. From Spain, from Sweden, from the UK, of course, we saw, but also in Germany, and that there is plenty of solutions, existing solutions to solve and to automate these use cases in financial services. Finally, I would like to give you some key insights on what could be the key success factors and the key challenges in implementing your own GenAI use case. The first success factors will be to build on top of existing UX workflow your GenAI use case. The main idea is that if you embed AI into an existing tool, it will be much easier to have an adoption of this use case, and so to move on more complex use cases. The second advice will be to leverage the document intelligence technology with AI capabilities, because it's something that is already very strong in GenAI. And so if you identify where you have EV documentations, you can easily find a way to navigate it, to extract the informations, and progressively to gain a lot of times in this documentation processing. And my last advice would be to start to scale use cases on highly tedious and repetitive tasks that can be automated. To do so, it is very interesting to work with an expert to understand exactly what type of task and how to automate it, and to have quickly the possibility to iterate on a real backlog of tasks. Now I will move on the challenges to overcome. I think the first challenge with AI is always about data quality and the poor data quality we got. So I think it is about to understand that it must be prepared before the project starts. You need to map all the data completeness, the consistency, and the standardizations you want for your data. Then you will have the cleaning part, of course, which can be hybrid between both AI and a human, to make sure that you got the most qualified data out of it. And it will be important in the future to establish data governance. So you will ensure the data consistency across times and years. The second challenges would be about bridging the expectation and the technical complexity of a GenAI use case. So to do so, you need to onboard the sponsors of the project very early on the technical feasibility and on technical discovery of GenAI. So they know what can be expected from GenAI and what can be. You also need to have a very in policy of transparency of the cost of AI. We were talking about tokens earlier, so we really need to know what is the cost of one feature and one other, and what are the alternatives. And finally, it will be to integrate quick wins into the roadmap, so you can have the early results of the implementations. And the last challenges would be about it is challenge which is about hyperscalers are developing new GenAI features. So you need to make sure that your GenAI use case is not becoming obsolete in the few next months, years, and would be like an empty investment. So to do so, you need to early before the project start understand where are the territories where could the hyperscaler could develop new features and try to avoid it, and to be like more concrete in your GenAI use case, you must secure the reusability of the use case And also, if you have the possibility to verticalize the use case, because the more the use case will be verticalized, the more it will be protected from being an horizontal use case that anybody, and especially hyperscaler, could move on. I hope this advice and insight give you the information you needed to start your own Gen AI use case and to launch plenty more. We would be more happy to answer any more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie, for these great insights. And don't hesitate to contact us if you would like to know more about these reports. We will move on now and talk with Paul, who will talk about agentic AI for IT with us.
Thank you so much. I'm not in Paris, I'm based in Amsterdam, but it's also 38 degrees here. So I feel like I'm in Paris. So that makes us on the same situation, I think. Hey, I'm going to zoom in on a very specific area of application of Gen AI. So I'm just going to lay out the lens to make sure that we understand from each other what we're talking about. In the previous speaker shared already some Gen AI use cases. We use Gen AI ourselves with Gemini or ChatGPT in our office work. And you have lots of AI applied in production systems already. For example, in a banking app, you can use AI to classify transactions. This is grocery shopping, this is rent, these kind of things. Or think of an insurance company where you go to the website as a customer and you have a damage, and then you look up on the website, is this damage actually covered? And then an agent will go into the policy documentation and make sure if you're covered or not and explain that in normal English. So these are all Gen AI use cases. What I'm going to talk about is using Gen AI in the creation process of software. And that means that we orchestrate a set of agents that actually go to the entire process of an idea to build actually software in production. And what's very good to understand there is that the actual software in production doesn't contain AI. We just use AI to actually create the software. So that's a starting point for my presentation. If you could go to the next slide. So if you do this properly, and we're doing that now with customers, this can bring you a lot of value. If applied properly, you can have more output of the teams. That's the thing people most look at. And I was a delivery manager myself for many years. And I was also very fed up that the team would say, hey, the sprint is done in terms of time, but we didn't finish the work. We need a bit of extra time. So that's something what this really can bring. But that's not the only thing. What also is possible is that by applying this AI in these agents in this step properly, you can make better documentation. You can be more compliant. You can improve on traceability. So also on very many non-functional aspects, you can actually do a better job because engineers don't like writing documentation. So if an agent helps you to write good documentation, it really will improve quality. And if you improve documentation, traceability, security, etc., you will also make like the CISO and the chief audit happy. So there is a lot there to be gained. But I think most importantly, you can make both your business more happy because you are able to produce more decent features in a shorter amount of time. And you will also make your people happy because the modern engineer really sees these developments and they want to make work with AI in their daily jobs because they know if we don't do that, we'll become a bit obsolete in terms of skills. So lots of potential. Let's go to the next slide, and so we can zoom in a bit more to understand what I'm talking about. So here you see, and it's a bit technical, and we zoom out later, I promise, but just bear with me. This is the software development lifecycle, which is often applied at many customers. So if you want to build something, you prepare, you think about what you're going to build, you define what stories you need to actually build that, you design the app or the service, then you start coding, you test it, you release it to production with documentation, and then you run it in production. That's the operate phase. And then you start all over again with the team to build the next feature. What we often saw in the past was that, oh, let's use AI. We give developers a GitHub Copilot license and the developers can use AI. Really cool. So what happened is that development went a bit faster, but because all the other steps stayed the same, the bottleneck just shifts and you get only limited marginal more output. And what we also saw is that, especially in the last couple of months, because token costs are exploding, if developers without thinking throw anything at the model, you will get lots and lots of token costs. So this is not the way to go for sure. If you could click, please. So what is better? To look at the entire process, the entire software development lifecycle, and for every step determine how we can use agents, skills to actually go through this process. And that means that you orchestrate a whole way of working where for every step, an agent really precisely does what needs to be done there and nothing more. And if you orchestrate that properly, you can also make sure that we only call big models if needed, but for smaller tasks, we just call smaller models, which means a lot less token cost. Also, by creating these tiny tasks and there actually do the work in these tiny tasks, the output becomes more repeatable and controllable and traceable. And even if you want to do it more sovereign, you can choose to keep some tasks locally, and for other tasks where you are allowed to go, you go to the hyperscalers. So this means that you get way more control of the actual software that you are producing. And that's really what you need to do. What we see with our customers is that typically, if we work with one team, after 4 sprints of 2 weeks, they are double or quadruple as productive as before. So this is a major game changer in the software development industry. So it's really something we should embrace. Let's go to the next slide. There is potential to bring lots more value, but there is a flip side. This is a big change for your organization. It's not about giving people some licenses and say, go ahead, make something. You need to do this properly. The roles will change. A developer will produce way less code than before. We have now teams that have an agent contribution ratio from 80 to 98%. And that means if you have 100 lines of code, 80 until 98 of those lines are written by AI. As we have enterprise-grade customers, we always have humans in the loop at the right places to make sure that nothing is done completely by AI. But just imagine how this changed the way a development team works, and also the not only the role of the engineer, but also the composition of the team. Typically, you had teams, a UXer, a business analyst, 3-4 developers, 2 testers. That's way too much. The teams will get smaller because they can have the agents do the heavy lifting. You just need people to orchestrate with brains that communicate with the business, that know what the business needs. So this is a major impact on the teams and the roles, which also makes people uncertain about what will happen with my future. So you really need to orchestrate this and think about this. Also, think of your CISO and your director of audit. They are super worried that we get out of control, that we get things in production that shouldn't be there, etc. So you need to have the proper harness, guardrails to actually make sure that you develop in a safe way and deliver production. Think of the CFO. If you explode on token cost, think on sovereignty constraints. So all these things you need to take into consideration to properly roll this out in your organization. Then you can think, hey, that's a lot, let's not do it. I think that's not an option because your competition will do this and they will go faster and better than you. So if you don't act on this, you will be obsolete in a couple of years. Next slide, please. So how do we do this now? How do we help our customers? And I wanted to share that with you just for some inspiration. What we always do with customers, and that has been very successful, is that we start with a proof of value. We start with one team and we help them to adopt this properly, to set up the whole software development lifecycle using the correct agents and skills. Everything is hardened, etc. We don't do this to prove that agentic development works, because that has been proven. You read in the media about AI pilots failing, etc. Agentic development doesn't fail if you apply it properly. So this is way more about that we, in your context, for the setting it for that team, we make it work. And also, you have some people who are quite skeptical about this part. You need to convince them to embrace this and to do it properly. So therefore, we do these proof of values, and it typically takes us 3 to 4 sprints to get the team really using AI properly. And that is then often the reason that the customer would say, we need to scale up to an entire department or organization. In practice, it's usually a department. So we make a plan. How are we now going to scale up all these teams without reinventing the wheel in every team? Because in every team, there are engineers. I was an engineer myself. We like to build stuff ourselves and reinvent the wheel because it's cool, right? So we need to find a way that we let the teams play a bit with agents and skills, etc., to learn and to adopt, but that we have a common library of agent skills and tools in way we produce our software. Also for the traceability, etc., etc. You want to be in control of what you produce within your department. So we make a plan how we can scale up these other teams and roll that out as well. Then if you have done that, then this field is changing so fast, it's unbelievable. So you need to set up in your organization, maybe you can do it with a platform team or any other team, that you have one team for a department or for an organization, depending on your size, where you really own the whole library of agents, skills, and tools. People from the departments, if they want to change something, they can do a request or do it themselves, but it should be reviewed, hardened, etc. Because your security attack becomes a lot bigger, because if you insert something malicious into an agent, it could put it in all your software, right? So you really need to get organized and make sure that you're in control, and that only verified agent skill updates, etc., will be used by the teams, and then that will enable the teams to produce software more effectively. What we often also see is that if we then we did one department, then if we want to go to another department at the company, we need to start all over again with the proof of value, because we need to convince new people how to use it, etc. So really tackle this as a change program in your organization. And then I think you can be very successful in this. So my main takeaway is lots of potential, but you really need to apply it properly. You need to think about it. You need to do it as a change. And then it can really help us, all those teams that often didn't deliver their sprint results, they can finally start delivering. And that would be awesome, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paul. So agentic AI is a big disruptive change, but if it's orchestrated really well, it can give great results. So we will now leave the floor to Enzo and Alexandra about AI augmented experiences for financial services.
Exactly. Thank you, Ilaria. So to give you a bit of context on what are AI augmented experiences, we've seen since the 70s the evolution of the way we communicate and interact with the digital world. So in the 70s, we interacted with the computers via command lines. And today, we are communicating with computers and phones via graphical interfaces and apps and mobile-first interfaces. But today we're seeing a new kind of interfaces emerge, which is basically chat interfaces and conversational interfaces, like ChatGPT or Mistral or Claude or etc. So basically what we see as AI augmented or AI first interfaces are a shift from a navigation behavior between menus, page. So you will navigate to fetch the information within the app. And AI augmented and AI first interfaces are the opposite. It's the mirror. So basically, you enter the app and you will see the information you wanted to get, because the agent will fetch the information for you based on the context, based on your prompt, based on your request to the agent. So with this in mind, we had the conviction that today this new wave of interface is coming hard. And based on that, we conducted a research program between last year and this year, on AI-first interfaces for banking apps. We've conducted this research across 5 countries in Europe. And for this specific research, we've designed a user interface, a prototype of banking app augmented by AI on an AI-first model. In this prototype, we wanted to illustrate 3 use cases, 3 events that you have when you interact with your banking app. For example, the simplest one is, I want to send money to my sister. So the AI assistant will have the context on who is your sister. If you have many sisters, he'll ask which one. And he could prepare all the elements for the transfer to be made and for you to confirm all the transaction at the end. The second event that we wanted to illustrate is, has my salary been paid? So basically, the assistant has to understand what is your salary, when it's paid, when it's transferred to your account, and if this one is your salary or not. And finally, the most complicated use case we wanted to illustrate is, do I have enough money for my vacations? So this requires a lot of context, and the actions that the agent were capable to do in this prototype was, if you don't have enough money on your current account, the agent could transfer from your savings account. So this is also to illustrate possibilities of semi-autonomous agents on AI augmented banking apps. So basically, our study gave us 4 key insights on what users want and don't want, what they like, what they feel awkward towards to. So the first one is, when using their banking apps, they're already satisfied. More than 70% of users we interviewed considered their banking apps efficient or very efficient. So some may say, everything I need is already in the app. I don't want AI to make it more complicated, but make it smarter. So that's why users are interested, we've seen, in AI analysis and assistance. And also, they don't want it to be fully autonomous. They want to stay in control. And the third key insight we've learned with our study is that they're not ready for fully AI-first interfaces, which means replacing the traditional interfaces with a conversational app and only being able to interact with that via conversation. So they still want to remain in control and have the traditional menus to interact when they want with the AI and to keep control on their habits navigating through the menus in their banking apps. And finally, the fourth big insight we've seen is that users, of course, we can expect that, are very cautious about AI outputs, and they want specifically to control all the outputs, all the elements the AI can give to their ends, and they want to be able to understand the outputs, the recommendations. That's really something that has been standing out very fiercely in our interviews. And now I will leave the floor to Alexandra to speak a bit more about that.
Thank you, Enzo. Well, yes, what we see from the research is that users are not rejecting AI in banking. They see value when AI helps them understand their financial situations, analyze information faster, and navigate complex journeys more easily. So that's one thing, but they're also very clear about wanting to stay in control. And this might seem like an obvious insight, but it's not. In financial services, this is critical. We're talking about money, about personal data, financial decisions, advice, risk, regulation. So trust cannot be taken for granted. It has to be designed. So the real opportunity here is not to replace existing interfaces overnight with fully AI first or fully conversational experiences, the real opportunity is to augment them in a way that it's intelligent. So with trust, clarity, and human control by design. So this is the real question, is how do we do that? How do we design AI augmented experiences that people can actually understand and trust and adopt? And this is where design becomes essential. So when I say design, I don't only mean visual design, screens, or making something look better. That is part of the process, of course, and of design. But in AI transformation, design has a broader role. It helps define the problem, shape the interaction, support development, test assumptions, guide implementation, and evaluate what happens after launch. So it's a whole process. And what we want to really convey here is that design matters both from the AI solutions and how it's built internally and how then it's experienced by the final user. So it really has to be taken into account. And if we go to the next slide, I will show you how we have identified 5 key designs shifts to make AI first work in financial services. So the first one is going from experimentation to adoption. It means that the goal is not only to create pilots or impressive demos, it is to really design the conditions for real usage. So defining what the use cases would be, that they are really related to what the product is built for. The second one is going from interfaces to behaviors. So in AI first experiences, the interface is no longer only a screen, and make it usable. It's a conversation, a decision path, or even an action. So we really need to define how the system understands the intent, responds, acts, and recovers so that it can also escalate beyond only having a screen. The third one is going from automation to trust. So automation is obviously powerful, but in financial services, it cannot come at the cost of control. So users really need to understand how the system is working, why it's making a recommendation, and when they need to validate an action with them to make them trust the system. So the fourth one gives us that feeling. Is not only having a chatbot, is building a conversational architecture. So it's not about making a bot sound friendly or giving it just a tone. It's designing the real structure of the interaction. So it really has to understand the intent, know the limits, understand the context, have memory, a tone, obviously, among other qualifications that are really important to really have that sense of having an intelligent conversation. And then finally, we are going from capability to value. So the starting point should not be what can AI do. It should be what problem are we solving? So for whom and how does this create real value? So what I'm trying to say here is that design is not a decoration. It's an operating system for building better AI experiences. And when organizations have a real strong design culture, these design methods are how we connect business, data, technology, delivery, and implementation. It's kind of like the secret touch to make this whole orchestration work. And we know that everyone is trying to jump into the next wave of AI, and probably everyone has to. The real question is no longer whether financial services should move into AI, is how. So what we see is that the organizations that will probably win at this, it's not just by adding AI or having AI just for the sake of it. It's having a system that is designed so that people can really trust it. And to see some examples of this, Enzo will show you how organizations that are taking this into account, especially banks, that have embedded this way of thinking are really succeeding. And not only in a way that it's internally, but also because of their customer experience and a whole integration of AI. Also, what Paul was talking about before, having it into the system, into the process of creating, and also in a way that the final users can really experience it in a way that they can trust it. So Enzo, I'll leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Alexandra. So yes, for example, we can talk about two of the major incumbents in Europe on these topics. For example, BBVA has started since many years working on its interface towards its banking app with clients, and it's one of the leader in design in design of interfaces regarding AI assistance for their customers. And on the other hand, with fintechs, new incumbents, which is not that new, but Revolut has recently also announced its deployment of Revolut Air in the UK, which is exactly what we've been talking about in this presentation. AI assistance for their customers to augment their finances and to augment their customer support also. So there's a ton of use cases to be implemented, but as Alexandra said, the focus is really on not what you can do, but what has value for your users. And in Europe, overall, beyond these two actors, we've seen many announcements since 2025 on these matters. And this is a topic that's moving fast, and every incumbent is taking this leap because the AI wave is really coming. And the impacts of this wave are a big increase in competition, because not only pure players are evolving towards AI augmented interfaces, but also AI players, which is a big pressure on competition. And on the other hand, users are also increasing their expectations, because being exposed to that much conversational interfaces elsewhere other than financial services, they will expect their financial services interfaces to be augmented by AI. So this is a big pressure on competition for incumbents that haven't yet taken the leap towards AI augmented interfaces. And these are the big elements here. Today, you have opportunities to move towards this wave, improve your customer understanding, because with an AI assistant that's understanding the context of your customers, you can serve them way better. You can reduce friction. You can increase their satisfaction, and you can also create, if you act fast enough, a competitive hedge towards incumbents that haven't implemented these interfaces. And on the other hand, you have also risks not taking actions. I've talked about the competitive pressure, but also you could lose users or clients, because if the entire market is evolving towards something that's better for their users, if you don't move, well, you may lag behind. So the key takeaway of this presentation is really mobile maturity today is not anymore a differentiator on the market, and the real next competitive frontier will be AI augmented interfaces.
Thank you, Enzo. Thank you, Alexandra. And thank you to all of our speakers for these great insights. And indeed, the question is not whether the wave is coming, but how we surf on it, right? So now we have a few minutes for a Q&A session. And you have the opportunity to ask in the chat your questions, and the experts from the panel will try to answer their best to you. So we have a first question about AI first, Enzo and Alexandra. Users say that they want to stay in control. So isn't AI first a contradiction? Aren't you really just building a smarter chatbot on top of the old app? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to start, and Alexandra, if you want to complete. It might be a contradiction if the AI augmented features are focused on automation and fully autonomous assistance. But what we've seen is that users really want to stay in control. So the goal with AI augmented interfaces is hyper-personalization. And with the knowledge of the user context and all its data, we can leverage all this data to propose hyper-personalized information, and even the user is always in control because it's his information for himself.
Thank you for this great answer. I hope this answered your question. We have another question this time about agentic AI for IT. So maybe, Paul, you can answer this. What are the biggest risks organizations should anticipate when adopting AI for IT?
So I think the biggest risk is security, because you need to remain in control of the software you build. So you should really have checks and balances in there. Also making sure that if agents or tools are changed, that they go through hardened pipelines where there are checks, that nothing weird comes in. I think I would say that's risk, the most important risk. And then depending on the business you do and how you look at it, sovereignty is also at least the context where you need to be aware of. Do you want to call the hyperscaler models? And if you do that, what's your backup plan if they are turned off? Like what happened with Anthropic Fable last week or 2 weeks ago. So you also need to make sure that you remain in control of the orchestration of creation of your software, and that if these things happen, that you have an alternative and a plan B.
Thank you very much, Paul, for this great answer. Another question about AI first. How do you handle the trust gap when the AI gets something wrong? Who's liable for a bad recommendation or a wrongly triggered transfer?
That's a very important
so
question. The thing is, of course, with AI, the risk of hallucination is high. And the role of banks and the role of actors like Sopra Steria is to do the best, the maximum, to avoid any inconsistencies, any hallucinations, any unvalidated transfer. So these are rules that have to be set, a ton of use cases that have to be put on the table and thought for to prevent these events from happening. So of course, now with an unplanned, unmanaged implementation, there are a ton of risks, but if done well, the risks are very limited.
Yeah, it's all about the orchestration
Yeah.
and the design thinking, isn't it? That's what we realize now. A question about the Gen AI report, Marie. From an investor's perspective, what distinguishes a truly promising AI startup from one that is simply following the trends?
Thank you for this very interesting and tough question, I guess, because actually many things that can differentiate it. And I would say also that if you are looking for a startup which is a small one, like between seed, pre-seed companies, you will heavily look on the team behind the project. So it's first thing. And regarding AI, what we are looking is more and more for AI native startups, meaning to make distinctions between a company that build on top of the product something to be in the wave, in the hype, and a company that truly by nature, by product, and know by operating workflow is AI native.
Very interesting. Very interesting. We have another question about agentic AI for IT, Paul. What concerns do your clients raise most frequently about AI-generated code?
Let me think. I think the biggest concern is that also to be responsible with AI, that there is still a human in the loop. So the biggest concern is that code would go to production where nobody was aware of. It actually happened with AWS a couple of months ago, and they reverted on that. They had some disturbances because quite some code went to production without human checks, and that resulted in some downtime. So what we see, our customers are all critical, semi-critical, and in this case, your financial institutes, yeah, you need to be compliant, audible, etc. So there, it's really about making sure that at the appropriate step, there is still a human in the loop.
Thank you. A question that is both about agentic AI for IT and AI first, so maybe you guys can try to answer together. How do you validate the correct working of a developed agent? Is it done in a systematic or an automated way?
Oh, I'm not sure to understand.
That's a difficult question.
Alexandra, do you have inputs on that?
I think it depends. It's not only one way of doing it. I think it really has to do with what kind of problem we're solving, what kind of happy path or of moments of uncertainty where the system is really working, and it depends also on the teams who are behind this. So I would say that automated systems are not, as it sounds, only automatic. It has been built before in a way that it has a way of answering. So yes, that would be my answer. But it's a difficult one. I think it
Shall I
maybe can help us.
Yeah, for in the software part, it's easier, I think. So what we do is the following. The agents that build the integration tests are fully separated from the agents that write the code. So that's separation of concern. Then what we also have, as I mentioned, we have humans in the loop at stages, but we also have old school tooling in this software development lifecycle. For example, a tool like checkmarks that checks on security vulnerabilities. So what we do, we use AI to build software, to build tests, etc. But we have humans and old school tooling in the loop to double check that what is there is appropriate.
Thank you, Paul and Alexandra, for trying to answer to this question. Again, about AI first, I know it's super interesting, right? I love this topic. If existing apps are already rated efficient, what's the actual return on investment case for investing in this now rather than waiting?
That's an excellent question. So, of course, there's two parts in this question. The first two in the answer. The first one is the market is moving forward, and those who don't adapt, those who don't get to the standards of this new wave, won't be able to keep up with the pace. So they lag behind. And on the other hand, implementing such features, augmented AI features, means first it's very long and complicated for incumbents that have a historic IT debt. So it's better to start now to see the results in a few years' time. But also, once you reach a certain maturity level on these features, a certain complexity level, the value you get is you know way better your customer. So you can provide him better advices. You can provide him with the best equipment in terms of financial products. You can adapt, if you're an insurer, you can adapt your services to him and answer his requests instantly if he has a problem. And you can be proactive instead of just reactive. And that's the real value, because when you have a bank that comes to you and answers and gives you elements that you didn't even thought you would need, but you will need, that's like you feel a VIP client. And really the goal of implementing such interfaces and features is to be able to leverage all the data and cross it and provide highly personalized and highly valuable recommendations and advices for your clients. So yeah, a ton of value to be reached, but a long path forward to get it.
Thank you, Enzo. And yes, indeed, let's stay proactive instead of reactive. Thank you all for attending this webinar. I hope you're now a bit more ready to explore how this applies to your company. Thank you for spending the last hour with us. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any ideas and anything to say to us, and have a great lunchtime.